My name is Carol Bennett. I'm 49 years old. At 9:12 on a Monday morning in February, 3 days after my mother's funeral, a fraud investigator from First Commonwealth Bank called me and asked why my dead mother's debit card had been used at a luxury spa, a liquor store, and a furniture outlet 40 miles away. I was standing in Mom's kitchen when the call came, holding a trash bag in one hand and a stack of sympathy cards in the other. The house still smelled like lilies from the funeral arrangements, coffee gone stale in the pot, and the lemon furniture polish Mom used every Saturday morning, even after her knees got bad. Her reading glasses sat beside the toaster. Her blue cardigan hung over the back of a chair. Her medication organizer was still on the counter, full through Wednesday, because she had died on a Tuesday. The bank representative said, "Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry for your loss. We have you listed as authorized contact and estate point of contact on Eleanor Bennett's account. We need to verify recent debit activity." Recent. That word landed strangely. My mother had been dead for 6 days. I set the sympathy cards down slowly. "What activity?" The woman's voice softened, but not enough to hide the seriousness. "Charges made on Saturday and Sunday after the account holder's date of death. 2 spa charges totaling $980. 1 liquor store charge for $214. 1 furniture outlet charge for $3,649. And multiple ATM withdrawals totaling $2,000. For a moment, I thought grief had finally damaged my hearing. Behind me, the refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped against the kitchen window above the sink. On the table lay the funeral invoice I had paid with my own credit card. Because my sister Melissa had said she was too broken to discuss money, my fingers tightened around the trash bag. "Are you sure those charges were after the death date?" "Yes, ma'am." "And the card was present?" "For several transactions, yes. One included PIN entry." Mom's debit card had been in her purse. Her purse had been on the chair beside her hospital bed when she died. Then it had come home with me. Then it had disappeared during the family gathering after the funeral. I closed my eyes. I already knew. But knowing is different when the bank says it before the police. The investigator continued. "We attempted to contact the secondary listed family member, Melissa Harper, but the number on file went to voicemail." My sister. The woman asked, "Do you recognize these transactions?" I looked across the kitchen at the framed photograph of Mom and Dad on their 30th anniversary. Dad had been gone 12 years. Mom had kept that picture near the phone because she said it made the kitchen feel less one-sided. "No," I said. "I did not authorize them." The investigator paused. "Do you know who may have had access to the card?" I thought of Melissa at the funeral, sobbing into a lace handkerchief she had borrowed from Mom's dresser. Melissa telling everyone, "I can't even think straight. Carol is handling everything because I'm just shattered." Melissa disappearing during the reception at Mom's house. Melissa hugging me too tightly before leaving and whispering, "Please don't judge how I grieve." I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not call Melissa and warn her the bank had found the trail. I just looked at Mom's empty chair and counted 7 seconds. "Yes," I said, "I know who had access." What they didn't know was that Mom had made me her financial power of attorney before she died, not because she loved my sister less, but because she had learned that love and trust are not always the same thing. What Melissa did not know was that I had already photographed Mom's purse inventory for the estate file. What no one in our family knew was that First Commonwealth Bank had frozen the account before the last ATM withdrawal cleared, saved the surveillance timestamps, and flagged the debit card before the police report was even filed. And what my sister absolutely did not know was that Mom's funeral luncheon had security cameras in the hallway outside the bedroom where her purse had been kept. This is that story. Before I tell you how my sister's grief act fell apart under bank records, ATM footage, and one timestamp from a funeral reception, tell me where you are watching or listening from and what time it is there. I always wonder who hears stories like this while remembering the moment someone used grief as camouflage. And if you connect with stories about women who were betrayed, underestimated, used, and quietly took their power back, like and subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. Some women do not accuse without proof. Some women wait for the bank to call first. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in a pale brick ranch house with green shutters, a narrow front porch, and a maple tree my father planted the year I was born. My parents, Eleanor and Frank Bennett, were not wealthy people. Dad worked in maintenance for the school district. Mom worked as a receptionist at a dental office for 29 years. They saved carefully, bought practical cars, paid bills early, and believed debt was like mildew, easier to prevent than remove. There were 2 daughters. I was the older one, Carol. Responsible, practical, quiet, and praised for being easy, before I understood that easy children often become exhausted adults. My younger sister Melissa was 3 years younger and had been dramatic since birth. That is not an insult. It was simply true. Melissa cried bigger, laughed louder, needed more, charmed faster, and turned every inconvenience into a scene with lighting. If she forgot homework, she was overwhelmed. If I forgot homework, I was careless. If Melissa spent her allowance in one afternoon, Mom said she was impulsive. If I hesitated before lending mine, I was selfish. Our family did not say Melissa was the favorite. Families rarely label the altar. They simply keep placing offerings on it. When we were children, Melissa broke Mom's ceramic angel and cried so hard that I ended up apologizing because I had been too harsh when I said she should tell the truth. When we were teenagers, Melissa took my blue sweater without asking, ruined it with bleach, and somehow, the conversation became about how I needed to stop being possessive. When we were adults, Melissa borrowed money from Mom for rent, car repairs, a cosmetology certification she never finished, a boutique candle business that lasted 6 months, and a divorce attorney after her second marriage ended badly. Mom always helped. Then Mom always worried. Then I always cleaned up what help had not fixed. That was the pattern. My symbolic object in this story was a little red receipt box. Mom kept it in the bottom drawer of her roll-top desk. It was metal, scratched at the corners, with a tiny brass latch that stuck unless you pressed it just right. Inside were bank receipts, utility stubs, insurance papers, warranties, and handwritten notes on index cards. Mom was not sentimental about money. She was exact. She wrote everything down because Dad had taught her early in their marriage that memory changes depending on who is being asked to repay it. The red receipt box became part of our family's furniture. It sat there through Christmases, birthdays, illnesses, arguments, and quiet Sunday afternoons when Mom balanced her checkbook with a cup of tea. When I was 22, I teased her about it. "Mom, the bank has computers." She looked over her glasses and said, "Computers are helpful, receipts are witnesses." I laughed then. I did not laugh later. Melissa hated that box. Not openly. She would joke about it. "There's Mom with her little evidence locker." Or, "Careful, Carol, Mom will file that cookie receipt." But whenever Mom opened the box after Melissa asked for money, Melissa's mood changed. Her voice softened. Her story adjusted. Her urgency became a fence. "Do you not trust me, Mom?" Mom would sigh and say, "It's not about trust." But sometimes it was. The first real crack between Melissa and Mom came after Dad died. Dad passed from pancreatic cancer when I was 37. It was brutal and fast. Mom became smaller afterward. Not physically at first, but in the way widows sometimes move through rooms as if half the furniture has vanished. I handled the insurance claims, funeral arrangements, pension paperwork, Social Security changes, and medical bills. Melissa handled crying. I do not mean she did not grieve. She did. But grief, for Melissa, always came with an audience and a way out of responsibility. At Dad's funeral luncheon, she collapsed into a chair and said, "I can't do paperwork. I just can't." So I did it. At the cemetery, she sobbed against Mom's shoulder and said, "I don't know how we'll survive without him." So Mom comforted her. 3 weeks later, Melissa asked Mom for $6,000 because she needed to reset her life. Mom gave it to her from the life insurance money. Melissa promised repayment after her new job started. The job lasted 5 weeks. The money never came back. When I asked Mom why she kept giving, she said, "She has always had a harder time." I said, "Mom, sometimes that is because we make everything soft before it reaches her." Mom looked at me with tired eyes. "Carol, please, I can only lose one family member at a time." That sentence ended the conversation for years. The second crack came when Mom's health began declining. She developed congestive heart failure, then diabetes complications, then neuropathy in her feet that made walking difficult. I lived 20 minutes away and worked full-time as an office manager for a civil engineering firm. Melissa lived 45 minutes away and worked flexibly. which meant nobody could ever predict whether she was employed, freelancing, resting, healing, launching something, or recovering from someone else's betrayal. I took Mom to cardiology appointments. I organized prescriptions. I filled the pill sorter every Sunday. I set up automatic bill pay. I cleaned the refrigerator. I hired a lawn service after Mom nearly fell pulling weeds. I replaced the bathroom grab bar. I sat with her during the hospital admissions when fluid filled her lungs, and she panicked because she could not breathe. Melissa visited when guilt or opportunity moved her. She brought flowers. She took selfies with Mom. She posted captions like, "Holding my beautiful mama close today." Then she left before medication time. One afternoon, after a hospital discharge, Mom asked me to drive her to the bank. I thought she needed cash. Instead, she asked to meet with account services. She added me as authorized contact, set up alerts to my phone, and removed Melissa's old debit card access from a joint convenience card she had created years earlier. I sat beside her, surprised. "Mom, are you sure?" Mom's lips pressed together. "Yes." "Did something happen?" She looked at the bank officer, then back at me. "Not something? Enough little things?" Later in the car, she told me. Melissa had used Mom's debit card twice without asking. Once for groceries, she claimed, once for gas. But the charges included a nail salon, a boutique, and an online subscription. When Mom confronted her, Melissa cried and said she had been under pressure and forgot which card was saved in her phone. Mom wanted to believe it. She did not. That was when she gave me financial power of attorney, not because she expected to die soon, because she expected Melissa to need something soon. The third crack came over Mom's funeral wishes. 2 years before she died, Mom called me into the kitchen, opened the red receipt box, and removed a blue folder labeled "Final Things." I hated that folder on sight. Inside were cemetery papers, life insurance information, a list of hymns, a copy of her will, bank contacts, and a handwritten note. "Carol, do not let Melissa turn my funeral into a performance paid for with money I do not have. Simple service. Church. Burial beside your father. Sandwiches at the house if you have energy. No expensive flowers, no white doves, no slideshow longer than one song. I love you both. But, you know..." "Mom." I sat at the kitchen table reading that last line. "But you know, I did. When Mom died, it was still a shock. People say expected death is easier. Those people are wrong. Expected death gives you paperwork. It does not soften the final breath." She died on Tuesday, February 7th at 4:18 in the morning in the cardiac step-down unit at Lancaster General. I was there. Melissa was not. Melissa had promised to come the night before, then texted at 11:10. "I can't drive crying. I'll come first thing." Mom died before first thing. I called Melissa from the hospital hallway. She answered on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. "Carol?" "She's gone." The sound Melissa made was real. I will give her that. Grief hit her hard in that first moment. But by noon, she had turned it into something familiar. She posted a photo of Mom from Christmas with the caption, "My entire heart is gone. I don't know how to breathe." By 1:30, people were commenting with hearts and prayers. By 2:15, Melissa called me and said, "We need to do something beautiful for her." I was sitting in the hospital billing office signing release forms. She already planned it. "Carol, please don't be rigid. Mom deserves more than basic." She wrote down what she wanted. She was trying not to be a burden. "No, Melissa, she was trying not to make me fight you." Silence. Then, wounded and sharp, "I guess you're in charge like always." "Yes," I said, "because she asked me to be." I handled the funeral. Not because I wanted control. Because someone had to choose the casket, call the church, coordinate the burial, write the obituary, order the luncheon trays, notify distant relatives, find Mom's navy dress, locate Dad's grave paperwork, and answer the funeral director when he gently asked whether anyone had selected flowers. Melissa disappeared for most of it. When present, she cried. At the funeral home, she stood beside the casket and whispered, "I can't make decisions." At the church, she clung to my arm like I was the cold one because I was not visibly falling apart. At the cemetery, she sobbed so loudly that Aunt Louise guided her to a chair, leaving me standing alone beside the grave as the pastor read the final prayer. People comforted Melissa. People asked me where to put the food. That is how it always was. After the burial, we gathered at Mom's house. I had ordered sandwiches, fruit trays, coffee, and cookies from the deli because Mom had specifically said no formal banquet. The house filled with relatives, neighbors, church friends, old co-workers, and people who loved my mother in ways I was too tired to measure. Melissa became the center of the room. She sat in Mom's blue armchair, wrapped in Mom's lace shawl, accepting hugs. She told stories. She cried into tissues. She said, "I just can't believe she's gone," at least 12 times, each one slightly louder than the last. People told her she was brave. People told me the coffee was low. At one point, I went into Mom's bedroom to place sympathy cards on the dresser. Mom's purse sat on the chair near the closet, where I had put it after bringing it home from the hospital. I had photographed its contents for the estate file that morning. Wallet, debit card, Medicare card, insurance card, driver's license, lipstick, rosary, folded grocery list, 2 peppermints, and a small photo of Dad. I know that sounds excessive, but Mom had trained me. Receipts are witnesses. When I came back into the hallway, Melissa was there. She looked startled. "What are you doing?" I asked. She held Mom's shawl tighter around herself. "I just needed a minute." "In Mom's room?" Her eyes filled. I wanted to smell her perfume. "Is that allowed?" There it was, the trap. Any question became cruelty if it touched grief. I stepped aside. Of course. She hugged me then, hard, her face against my shoulder. "Please don't judge how I grieve," she whispered. I closed my eyes. I'm not. But I noticed. By 6 o'clock, the house emptied. Melissa said she could not help clean because being in Mom's house was too much. She left with her husband, Ryan, who had spent most of the reception in the driveway taking work calls. I washed coffee cups, wrapped leftovers, took out trash, locked the back door, and sat at Mom's kitchen table until 8:30, staring at the red receipt box. I did not check the purse that night. I should have. But grief is not a perfect investigator. Saturday passed in a blur. I slept late, woke up guilty, went back to Mom's house, began sorting flowers, and wrote a list of immediate estate tasks. I noticed Mom's purse on the bedroom chair. I did not open it. The house felt too raw. Every object felt like a question I was not ready to answer. Sunday, I went to church because Mom would have wanted me to. People hugged me. People told me I looked tired. One woman said, "Your sister is taking this so hard." I smiled so tightly my jaw hurt. Monday morning, the bank called. Spa, liquor store, furniture outlet, ATM withdrawals, dead mother's debit card. I answered the investigators' questions as best I could. Yes, Mom died Tuesday. Yes, the funeral was Friday. Yes, the card had been in her purse. Yes, Melissa had been near the bedroom. No, I did not authorize use. Yes, I had power of attorney before death, and I understood that authority ended at death, and estate procedures began. The investigator, whose name was Renee Porter, said, "We have frozen the debit card and restricted account activity pending estate documentation. Because some transactions occurred after date of death, we recommend filing a police report." My stomach turned. That's my sister. Renee's voice stayed professional. I understand. I almost laughed. No, she did not. How could she? How could a stranger understand the specific horror of realizing your sister may have stolen from your mother's account between the funeral flowers and the thank you notes? Renee continued, "Ms. Bennett, if you are the estate representative, you will need to protect the account." There it was, the sentence that cut through everything. Protect the account, not protect Melissa, not protect family image, not protect the grief performance. Protect the account, protect Mom. I said, "What do you need from me?" "Death certificate when available, funeral home verification for now. your identification, and any documentation of authorized users. We can also provide transaction details to law enforcement. After the call, I went to Mom's bedroom and opened the purse. The debit card was gone. So was the folded grocery list, oddly. Everything else remained. I sat on the edge of Mom's bed holding her wallet and felt the anger arrive slowly, like heat under a closed door. Not explosive. Worse. Steady. I called the funeral home and asked for certified death certificate timing. I called Mr. Daniel Keene, Mom's estate attorney, and scheduled an emergency meeting. I called the police non-emergency line, then stopped before giving my name. Not yet. I needed to be sure. That was the old training again. Do not accuse Melissa without proof. Do not make it worse. Do not tear the family apart. Then I looked at the missing card and the banknotes in my handwriting. Melissa had used a dead woman's debit card. The family was already torn. I called back and filed the report. Officer James Whitaker came to Mom's house at 1:20 that afternoon. He was in his 40s, calm, with a notebook, and the tired kindness of someone who had seen too many families behave badly around death. I gave him everything I had: bank call notes, Mom's death date, funeral reception timeline, purse location, photograph of purse contents taken before the reception, and the list of charges Renee had provided verbally. He looked at the purse inventory photo. "You took this before the card disappeared?" "Yes." "Why?" "My mother taught me to document important things." He nodded once. "Smart woman." "Yes." "Do you have reason to believe your sister took it?" I looked toward Mom's blue chair in the living room. "Yes." Then I told him about the hallway, the bedroom, the shawl, the "don't judge how I grieve." He wrote it down without reacting. "Do you have cameras?" "No." Then I remembered. The neighbor might. Mrs. Alvarez lived next door and had installed a doorbell camera after a package theft. It faced partly toward Mom's driveway and side walkway. Also, the funeral home had recommended a local cleaning company for post-luncheon cleanup, and I had placed my phone on the hallway console during the reception to play Mom's favorite hymns through a small speaker. But the phone camera had not been recording. Then another thought came. My cousin's husband set up a baby monitor in the hallway. Officer Whitaker looked up. "A baby monitor?" "My cousin brought her toddler. She set up a portable monitor near the hallway, so she could put him down in the back bedroom if he napped. I don't know if it records." "Find out." I did. My cousin Laura answered on the first ring and started crying because she thought I was calling about grief. I asked about the monitor. She said yes, it recorded short motion clips to an app. "Why?" she asked. I sat at Mom's kitchen table. "Because Mom's debit card was used after the funeral." The line went silent. Then Laura whispered, "Oh, Carol." Within 20 minutes, she sent me 3 clips. The first showed guests moving through the hallway. The second showed Melissa entering Mom's bedroom at 4:36. The third showed Melissa leaving at 4:41, holding Mom's shawl in one hand and something small in the other. Not clear enough to prove the card. Clear enough to prove she lied about only needing a minute. I forwarded the clips to Officer Whitaker. Then I drove to First Commonwealth Bank. Renee Porter met me in a glass office with a box of tissues on the desk. I hated the tissues. I understood why they were there. She reviewed the account status. The bank had flagged unusual activity because Mom had not used the debit card for anything except groceries, pharmacy, and church donations for years. The spa charge triggered a pattern alert. The furniture outlet charge triggered a second. The ATM withdrawals pushed it into manual review. Then the bank system cross-referenced Mom's date of death from a notification I had already submitted for account transition. "Do you have video?" I asked. "Law enforcement can request it directly," Renee said, "but I can confirm several transactions were card present." "PIN?" "Yes." My stomach dropped. Melissa knew Mom's PIN. Mom had given it to her years ago during an emergency grocery trip and never changed it because changing PINs made her anxious. I had suggested changing it after the old debit issue. Mom said she had. Apparently she had not. Or Melissa had found it written somewhere. The grocery list. My mind snapped back. The folded grocery list missing from the wallet. Mom sometimes wrote numbers in ways only she understood. Not full PINs exactly, but hints. She might have written it there. Or Melissa might have known. Renee printed a provisional transaction list for the police and estate file. She slid it across the desk. Saturday, February 11th. Serenity Falls Spa. $620. Saturday. Serenity Falls Spa. $360. Saturday. Lancaster Wine and Spirits. $214.82. Sunday. ATM withdrawal. $500. Sunday. ATM withdrawal. $500. Sunday. ATM withdrawal. $500. Sunday. ATM withdrawal. $500. Sunday. Ashford Home Outlet. $3. $649.18. Total. $6. $343. I stared at the paper. $6,343. After the funeral. Before the thank you notes. I looked at Renee. What happens now? The account remains frozen. The estate can dispute unauthorized transactions. Law enforcement will investigate. If the bank determines fraud, some funds may be recoverable depending on timing and cooperation. Cooperation. That word felt unlikely. I drove home and sat in my driveway until sunset. Then Melissa called. Not because she knew about the police, because she wanted something else. Carol, she said, voice fragile. Have you started going through Mom's jewelry? I closed my eyes. No. I just think we should do it together before things get weird. Things. Weird. I looked at the transaction list on my passenger seat. Melissa, where were you Saturday afternoon? She paused. What? Saturday afternoon. I was home, crying. Why? Did you go anywhere? Her voice sharpened. Are you interrogating me? No, I asked a question. I went out for a little while. I needed air. Where? Carol, this is exactly what I meant. You grieve like a manager. There it was, the old smoke machine. I said, Mom's debit card was used after the funeral. Silence, not confusion, silence. Then, too quickly, what? The bank called. Oh my God. Was she hacked? She was dead, Melissa. Her card was missing. That's horrible. Yes. Why are you telling me like that? Because you were in her bedroom during the reception. She gasped. I cannot believe you. Did you take Mom's debit card? The line went so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat. Then she started crying, not answering, crying. Mom just died and you're accusing me of stealing from her? Yes, I said. That stopped her for half a second. Then she exploded. You are sick. You have always hated how close we were. You couldn't stand that Mom understood me differently. I looked toward my living room, where Mom's red receipt box sat on my coffee table. Melissa, did you take the card? You need help? She hung up. I forwarded the call summary to Officer Whitaker and Mr. Keene. Then I made tea with hands that did not shake until I sat down. I need to pause here for a second. If you have ever asked a direct question and watched someone answer with outrage instead of truth, you know exactly what that phone call felt like. It was not grief. It was deflection, wearing grief's coat. If this story is hitting close to home, leave a comment and tell me what moment made you stop confusing tears with innocence. And if you have not already, subscribe to Ultimate Revenge. The quiet part is over. The investigation moved faster than I expected. That is what happens when banks are involved. Officer Whitaker obtained transaction videos. The spa footage showed Melissa at the counter with Mom's debit card on Saturday afternoon, wearing oversized sunglasses and the black coat she had worn to the funeral. The liquor store footage showed her husband Ryan using the card. The ATM footage showed Melissa withdrawing cash with a tissue in one hand and the card in the other. The furniture outlet receipt listed delivery to Melissa and Ryan's address. The furniture outlet was the ugliest part. Not because it was the largest charge, because she had bought a bedroom set. A new bed, dresser, and nightstands. 2 days after standing beside our mother's grave, when Officer Whitaker called me with confirmation, I was in Mom's dining room sorting church casserole dishes. He said, Ms. Bennett, I'm sorry. That was when I sat down. Does she know you have video? Not yet. What happens next? We'll ask her to come in for an interview. Will she be arrested? I can't predict exactly, but using a deceased person's debit card without authorization is serious. I thought of Mom's shawl around Melissa's shoulders. The lace handkerchief. The sobbing. Good, I said. Then I hated myself for saying it. Then I stopped. Good did not mean I wanted my sister ruined. Good meant Mom deserved protection, even after death. The public family reveal happened because Melissa forced it. Mom's will reading was scheduled for Friday at Mr. Keen's office. I did not want Melissa there without knowing what had happened, but Mr. Keen said she had legal rights as beneficiary and should attend unless advised otherwise. Officer Whitaker knew about the meeting. He said the police interview request had already been sent. Melissa arrived 10 minutes late wearing black, no makeup, and an expression of holy injury. Ryan came with her. That surprised me. He avoided my eyes. We gathered in Mr. Keen's conference room. Me, Melissa, Ryan, Aunt Louise, Cousin Laura, and Mom's neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, because Mom had named her as a witness to certain personal property distributions. Mr. Keen sat at the head of the table with Mom's will, the estate file, and the red receipt box. Melissa looked at the box and scoffed. Of course you brought that. Mr. Keen looked up. Your mother instructed that it be present. Melissa's mouth tightened. The will was simple. Mom's house to be sold, proceeds divided equally after debts and expenses. Personal jewelry divided according to a written list. Family photographs to be copied. Dad's watch to Ryan? No. To no one. Mom had left it to my son, Adam, because he had helped Dad repair lawnmowers as a child. Melissa looked offended by that too. Then Mr. Keen reached the financial section. As of the date of death, Eleanor Bennett's checking account held approximately $22,000, subject to final reconciliation and any unauthorized transactions currently under investigation. Melissa went perfectly still. Aunt Louise frowned. Unauthorized transactions? Melissa said, "Can we not do this here?" Mr. Keen folded his hands. Do what? She glared at me. Carol is trying to humiliate me. I looked at her. No, I'm trying to settle Mom's estate. By accusing me? Aunt Louise looked from her to me. Accusing you of what? Melissa stood. This is ridiculous. I used Mom's card for family-related expenses, and Carol is acting like I robbed a grave. The room went silent. Ryan closed his eyes. There it was. Not denial. Reframing. Family-related expenses. Mr. Keen removed his glasses slowly. Melissa, are you admitting you used Eleanor's debit card after her death? Melissa's face changed. No, Mom would have wanted. Mr. Keen's voice sharpened. Please sit down. She sat. Aunt Louise whispered, Melissa, what did you do? Melissa began crying. I was grieving. Mrs. Alvarez, who had said nothing all morning, leaned back and said, Grief does not buy bedroom furniture. Melissa's head snapped toward her. What? I looked at Mrs. Alvarez. She looked at me. I heard enough from the bank lady when Carol called me about the driveway camera, she said. I am old, not decorative. I almost smiled despite everything. Mr. Keen opened a folder. Because the matter affects estate assets, I will state what is documented. After Eleanor Bennett's death and before a state authority was established, her debit card was used for spa services, alcohol, ATM withdrawals, and furniture. The bank froze the account and contacted Carol as authorized estate point of contact. A police report has been filed. Aunt Louise put one hand over her mouth. Laura began crying quietly. Ryan stood. I didn't know it was her mom's card. Melissa turned on him. Ryan. He stepped back. No, I used it at the liquor store. Because you handed it to me. You said Carol gave you money from the estate for funeral stress. Every face turned to Melissa. Funeral stress. She looked trapped for 1 second, then chose performance. You have no idea what I was feeling. I spoke for the first time. Mom was dead. Melissa looked at me. You always do that. What? Say something cold, like it wins. No, I said. I say something true because you keep trying to decorate theft. Her face twisted. I didn't steal. Mom would have helped me. She always helped me. Mr. Keen said, your mother was not legally capable of authorizing charges after death. Melissa said, "You're making this about law. She was my mother." I looked at her for a long moment. She was my mother too. That sentence landed quietly. Maybe because I had not raised my voice. Maybe because everyone in that room knew it was the part Melissa always forgot. Mr. Keene opened the red receipt box. Melissa flinched. Inside were Mom's notes about prior debit card issues. The nail salon. The boutique. The online subscription. A handwritten note saying, "Changed card access. Carol contact. Do not give Melissa PIN." Mr. Keene read only enough to establish a pattern. Melissa cried harder. Aunt Louise looked devastated. Ryan looked angry now, not at me. At his wife. "You told me your mom helped with the spa day," he said. Melissa snapped. "I needed one day to feel human." "With a dead woman's debit card?" Mrs. Alvarez said. No one tried to silence her. Officer Whitaker arrived at 11:20. He did not storm in. He knocked lightly, entered with another officer, and asked to speak with Melissa and Ryan separately. Melissa looked around the room as if someone should rescue her. For most of our lives, someone had. Mom, me, her husbands, her friends, her tears. But not that day. Aunt Louise stared at the table. Laura looked away. Ryan stepped into the hall first. Melissa looked at me. "You did this." I shook my head. "No. You did this after Mom's funeral. I answered the phone when the bank called." She was not arrested in the conference room. I want to be clear about that. Real life is often less cinematic than people think. She was interviewed. The evidence was reviewed. Charges came later. The bank investigation continued. The estate filed disputes. The furniture outlet was contacted. The spa refused refund at first, then cooperated when police requested records. The ATM withdrawals were not recovered quickly, if at all. But the family story changed that day. Not because I convinced them. Because Melissa spoke too soon, and the documents were already on the table. The aftermath was uglier than I wanted. Melissa called me cruel. Then she called me jealous. Then she texted, "Mom would hate you for involving police." I replied with a photo of Mom's note from the red receipt box. "Do not give Melissa PIN." She did not answer for 3 days. Ryan returned the bedroom set. I do not know whether from guilt, fear, or anger, and I do not care. The furniture outlet refunded part of the purchase after restocking fees. The bank recovered some charges. The estate absorbed some loss temporarily, while restitution became part of the legal process. Melissa eventually faced criminal charges related to unauthorized use of the card and withdrawals. Her attorney tried to frame it as grief-induced confusion and family misunderstanding. The ATM video made that difficult. The spa appointment made it worse. The furniture delivery made it nearly impossible. At the preliminary hearing, Melissa looked small, not innocent. Small. I sat behind the prosecutor with Mr. Keene. Aunt Louise sat 2 rows back. Ryan did not sit with Melissa. He had moved out by then. That was not my doing. Theft reveals many things at once. Melissa's attorney argued that she believed she had permission from prior family patterns. Prior family patterns. That phrase almost made me laugh, because in a way, it was the truest thing said in court. Melissa had always been given access, forgiveness, rescue, softness, benefit of the doubt, and money when she cried hard enough. She mistook that pattern for permission. The judge did not. There were conditions, restitution, probation possibilities, counseling requirements, and more legal words than I will repeat here. The outcome was not as severe as some people wanted, and not as soft as Melissa expected. That is often how justice feels when family is involved, incomplete from every angle. But the estate was protected. Mom's account was closed properly. The red receipt box came home with me. For months after, I had dreams about Mom's purse. In the dreams, I kept opening it and finding things missing. Debit card, driver's license, lipstick, rosary, Dad's photo. Sometimes the purse was empty. Sometimes Melissa was sitting in Mom's chair saying, "Why are you making such a big deal?" I would wake angry, then sad, then angry again. Grief after betrayal is complicated because you do not only mourn the person who died, you mourn the version of family that might have held you through it if they had not been busy stealing from the dead. One afternoon in April, I went to Mom's house alone to finish sorting the bedroom. I had avoided her dresser. It felt too intimate. But the estate needed progress, and I could hear Mom's voice saying, "Carol, delaying paperwork does not make it disappear." In the top drawer, under folded scarves, I found a small envelope with my name. Carol. Inside was a letter. My hands shook before I unfolded it. Carol. If you are reading this, I am gone, and you are probably doing too much. I am sorry. I should have asked less of you and more of your sister. I confused your strength with capacity and Melissa's tears with need. That was unfair to both of you, though it harmed you more. There are things in the red box, because I know you will need proof one day. I hope I am wrong. I suspect I am not. Do what is right, not what keeps everyone comfortable. I love you. You were not the cold one. You were the one who stayed. Mom. I sat on the floor beside her dresser and cried so hard my chest hurt. You were not the cold one. That sentence changed something in me. For years, Melissa had been emotional, and I had been labeled hard. Melissa cried, and I organized. Melissa collapsed, and I signed forms. Melissa posted grief, and I ordered death certificates. People mistook visible emotion for deeper love, because my love arrived as competence. Mom had seen it. Too late in some ways. Still enough. I placed the letter in the red receipt box. Then I sorted the scarves. The house sold in July. Not quickly, not slowly. Just as houses do when families are tired, and estate agents begin speaking in square footage instead of memories. Before the sale, Melissa asked for one last visit. Her attorney relayed the request through Mr. Keene because I had blocked direct contact except through legal channels. I said yes under conditions. Scheduled time. No unsupervised access. No removing property except what had been designated. Mr. Keene attended. Melissa arrived wearing jeans, no makeup, and a face that looked older than it had at the funeral. She walked through the living room silently. She touched Mom's blue chair. She stood in the kitchen for a long time. Then she looked at me. I did love her, she said. I felt tired. I know. Her eyes filled. You don't believe me. I do believe you loved her. She looked surprised. Then I added, I also believe you stole from her. Her face crumpled. Both things were true. People want love to erase harm. It does not. She wiped her face. I told myself she would have given it to me. She might have helped you. Yes. But she did not give you permission to take. Melissa nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I know that now. Do you? I'm trying. That was as far as she could go. Before she left, she handed me a small plastic bag. Inside was Mom's missing grocery list. I found it in my purse, she whispered. I took it. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, were 4 numbers spaced between grocery items. Milk, eggs, tea. It was the pin. Melissa had not needed to guess. She had taken the list too. I looked at it. Then at her. She lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. This time, I believed she knew what she was apologizing for. That did not make it better. But it made it cleaner. After the house sold, the estate distributions were reduced by unrecovered losses and legal expenses related to Melissa's transactions. Mr. Keene allocated adjustments according to law and court orders. Melissa received less than she expected. I received less than I would have if she had not stolen. Nobody won. That is another truth-revenge story sometimes polished too much. There was no joy in seeing my sister diminished. There was relief. There was validation. There was the quiet satisfaction of knowing Mom's account had not been left undefended. But there was no dancing in the street. When people steal after death, they do not only take money, they take the already fragile dignity of mourning. They force the responsible person to become investigator while still trying to be a daughter. They turn sympathy cards into evidence folders. They make a bank call part of the grieving process. I still resent that. I probably always will. Melissa and I are not close now. We speak occasionally. Holidays by text. Short updates. No shared accounts. No keys. No just between sisters financial requests. She completed court-ordered restitution and counseling. She works now at a salon in York. And, according to Aunt Louise, is doing better. I hope that is true. I hope she becomes someone who does not need grief to become a cover story. But hope is not access. That distinction saved me. A year after Mom died, I opened the red receipt box at my own kitchen table. I had avoided doing it for a while. Inside were Mom's notes, bank papers, recovered transaction records, my power of attorney documents, the funeral invoice, the police report copy, her letter to me, and the little grocery list with the pin. I added one more thing, a receipt from the church for a donation made in Mom's name to the Emergency Assistance Fund. The amount was $6.343. Exactly what Melissa had charged and withdrawn. I did not make that donation because I am saintly. I made it because I wanted that number to stop belonging only to theft. I wanted it to buy groceries, medicine, rent help, utility relief. I wanted Mom's name attached to rescue instead of violation. When the church secretary sent a thank you note, she wrote, "Your mother helped more people than she knew." I placed the note in the box. That felt right. Now the red receipt box sits on a shelf in my home office. Not hidden, not displayed, present, a witness. Sometimes my son Adam asks why I keep so much paper when everything can be digital. I tell him what Mom told me. Receipts are witnesses. He smiles because he knows the story. Not all of it. Enough. When I think back to that Monday morning bank call, I still remember the refrigerator hum, the rain, the sympathy cards, the shock of hearing spa charges attached to my mother's name after she was already in the ground. But I also remember my own voice. No, I did not authorize it. Yes, I know who had access. That was the moment I stopped protecting Melissa from the truth and started protecting Mom from Melissa's version of it. My sister used Mom's debit card after the funeral. The bank called me before the police. And when all the grief acting, accusations, tears, and family pressure finally met the transaction list, the ATM footage, and my mother's red receipt box, the truth did not need to shout. It had timestamps. Thank you for staying with me through this story. I know some betrayals are especially painful when they happen around illness, funerals, inheritance, and the vulnerable days after someone you love is gone. If Carol's story reached you, I hope you remember that documentation is not cold when someone is counting on your grief to blur the facts. You are allowed to protect the dead. You are allowed to protect yourself. And you are allowed to stop mistaking someone's tears for innocence when the receipts say otherwise. Subscribe to Ultimate Revenge for more stories about quiet women, family betrayal, silent comebacks, and the proof that finally speaks. So tell me, if your sister used your mother's debit card after the funeral and then called it grief, would you handle it privately to protect the family, or would you let the bank records and police report tell the truth?